influence, entrap, sway, deal, cultivate. These 5 words of power are used to describe the followers of Set, otherwise known as the Ministry. Or do they actually? I am your Lord and Saviour, and this is the Bloody Guide to Vampire Roleplay. The Ministry are a clan of vampires that dates their existence back to the times of the ancient Egyptians, going so far as to state that Set is not only their founding vampire, but is the progenitor of all vampires. The story of Set, born in Egypt nearly 7,000 years ago, who was a great hunter and warrior, and whose only rival was his elder brother, Osiris. Ra, his grandfather, ordered the death of Set's parents, and his voice in the matter subjected him to banishment. Osiris, on the other hand, became the heir to the throne after the death of Ra. Set took the name Sotek and travelled north to Arisia, where he encountered his sire and became enamored of reptiles. Set was a brother of Malkav and Salot, according to the Malkavians. Set was banished from the second city by Malkav for eating the heart of his twin sister, Arakel, according to the Venture at least. Set struck down King Osiris and his son Horus, taking Egypt as his own, but Horus came back from the death as a mummy and sought vengeance to his father's destruction, ejecting Set from the throne of Egypt. What would spiral then are 3 tales we do not have the time for today, but each one depicts Set as some form of martyr to his vampiric followers who, in their own ways, would deceive and manipulate those around them for their own gain. With the increased forces of the Second Inquisition, they tried to gain sanctuary to the Camarilla, but the Ivory Tower responded by blowing up the elders who went to speak with them in Paris. The Ministry, in turn, took themselves to the Anarch movement. Most vampire fans who know anything about the Ministry have been playing since the clan's inception and will just wish to recreate the followers of Set of old, which is a totally valid approach. Cult of the Blood Gods and the Church of Set's lore sheet from the Anarch book have what you need to live out your Setite fantasy, so all you need to do is make a Setite of African descent, as they are the ones that still adhere to this title, that is, if you're wishing to stick to the 5th edition transcript religiously to pardon the pun. However, whilst I have just presented the basics of the lore and origins and founder to you, it still presents the question of how to play a spokesperson for a cult, or in more religious terms, a person authorized to conduct religious worship, a member of the clergy, a pastor, a minister. This begins to answer a very complicated and nuanced question, of can of worms that is open for much debate on how it should be answered and addressed, much like the teaching of any religious practice. Followers of any faith and cult act upon and educate the unenlightened of their god's teachings. They are, in a sense, an avatar of their god, a conduit of their will. They are a product of their god. Shards of them exist within the adherent, forming a person around it. With this in mind, it means that the Setites are Set, their bodies, minds, and souls, temples to their manipulative god of chaos. They are a collective ministry, spreading their faith through all of their kind. Each minister should aim to have more take on their pursuit of enlightenment and more resources for their self-fulfilling temple. A teacher or mentor can show them the way, but it is down to the pupil to walk the path and find their own way. Their way. So the next question you're probably wanting me to answer is who is Set to the Setite, which is something I cannot answer because there is no complete answer to that. This can be applied to any other religious entity. No 2 religions pray and worship their gods the same way. No 2 people with the same religion pray the same way. Even religions that share gods or concepts are not truly the same, so to assume one of the Ministry have this narrow conception and thus indoctrinate members the same way is a foolish misconception. Indeed, it is best to think what does Set represent. For example, if I was to ask you what the Christian God represents or what he symbolizes, you probably think of divinity, peace, good, and other themes to that effect. Some may disagree, whilst others may wish to expand upon those philosophies. Set from the story I shared with you at the beginning, he is the shape-shifting trickster god Loki. Set is the rebellious Lucifer wanting to liberate mankind from the tyranny of God. Set is God's darker reflection, the hostile and destructive Satan, to go against orders to become anti-establishment, freeing the mind from the shackles of normality and embrace the new world, or what those from the outside perspective would call chaos. The minister's role, from the perspective of the Setite, is not of corruption, but of liberation, and most people are already partway there. Every criminal, con artist, atheist, fraudster, and anyone within any existing religion who dares to ask why they are all unknowing servants of Set. He has been in our lives since establishing the word crime. He takes donations in drug deals, accepts sacrifices in the form of trafficking sex rings, and smiles at the blood that trickles into the streets of the alleyway. He's all these things and more. All that is needed is to get them to wake up from the dreams of falsehood, often long before the embrace. To that end, Set is Cain, the first vampire, who defied and murdered for his kin for his own envious claims. To exist as a vampire is a reminder of your place in the world, that you are not meant to exist. The curse of Cain was meant for him and him alone, and Cain defied God not once, not twice, but 3 times. You are a debaucherous sin incarnate in any other eye not belonging to a minister. To feel the blood of Set course your veins, to be a creature of chaos, and to defy the ultimate creator is the greatest calling one could receive. He is not God, Set is your God, and you are his angels on earth. The La Sombra use mortal churches as a means to assert power in the mortal and kindred world, but they are not a faithful clan. The Ministry are the clan of faith. The La Sombra have trapped themselves in a rigid society that does not truly want them, whilst the Ministry are free within the disorganized Anarchs to influence them to their eternal bidding. It is easier to influence those whose modus operandi is to stick it to the man. However, that is not to say that Camarilla Setites do not exist. After all, the Camarilla is arguably the best thing Canaanite society has put together, which would also mean that it is a bloody fine vehicle to fuel one's agenda, which is why the Ministry went to them first, and the Anarchs became a sloppy second best. Setites of the Tower are not seen as traitors either, as the true glory of Set will be made manifest in the subversion or destruction of all the other clans in the end. It should be obvious that the most important of the 3 minister disciplines is presence. A good Setite should use it to sway emotions with subtlety, but with great prowess. Your congregation needs to love you as a speaker of your God, or the wicked right hand, but it also needs to know their place when they have stepped out of line. In many ways, the love to be in the spotlight, but it serves a grander, holier purpose. They are not the Toreador wanting to be the attraction, or the Ventrue wanting to be obeyed. The presence of the Ministry is again an extension of Set, who was banished from the light, much like Cain was. The most obvious manifestation of this is through the clan weakness of the abhorrent of the light, but it also extends to the use of obfuscate to keep them in the dark. It is also used to assume different guises to appear more trustworthy, such as your bestie or lover who just learned of this new esoteric New Age religion that has turned their world upside down. The most unique of their disciplines, however, is Serpentis, or at least it was, before it was smashed into the form of Protean because somebody decided they were ultimately the same discipline. Whereas the Gangrel take on the form of birds and wolves, the Setite assumes snakes. Rather than claws, the followers of Set get large, scaly talons. Yes, these can be used to attack and defend, like an animal, but the Ministry use their gifts to inspire awe as well as fear. It is easy to apply the attitude of "look what you obtain should you join us" mentality, a blessing from unholy God to lure the weakest of minds into those the most loyal of followers. There are also other unique gifts the Ministry have that make their form of shapeshifting stand out from their Gangrel and now Zemitzi, which you can explore at your leisure in Cults of the Blood Gods. With this wide range of functions, there are many ways you can bend predator types to fit your kindred concepts, but here is what I would suggest. Obviously, we're going to focus mainly on either Osiris or Sin Queen. Both could apply to cults, but one implies a large size and you are the one calling the shots, whereas the other implies you're not the one in charge and is much smaller. Siren would be appropriate fit too, depending on the table you're all at, as many sexual acts, including sex itself, are taboo subjects that are liberating to those who enjoy it and explores its different avenues. A more street-level minister may focus on the extortionist predator type from Cult of the Blood Gods, as they deal in blood and blood money. There are many lore sheets you can also assign to your character, but here are some of the ones I think fit well with tonight's clan. Again, we are going to consider the various cult-related ones from Cult of the Blood Gods, Trails of Ash and Bone, Children of the Blood, and Forbidden Religions. Remember that set comes in many forms, so you can express and spread deception and pandemonium in many different ways, unless that involves trying to worship Mithras. The Setites have never really been liked by the Bull God, but it wouldn't be very ministry to worship a different god entirely, one that you could never hope of morphing into your own line of thinking. Your manipulative gods are going to get you all bustled up to various people, and any particular kindred scattered in source books may be worthwhile getting in your good books, or bad, depending on the concept in question. Despite their cause, the ministry as a whole are seen as a low clan in most parts of the world, with only being a high clan in Egypt for obvious reasons. So if you want either of those, you have the core book for those as well. Gangsters amongst the ministry may be interested in the Capone gang lore sheet from Chicago by Night. There were once Setite warriors, or warrior Setites, enemies of a particular tribe of Lupine, and you could take the fight to them, serving a set sword with a Lupine expert and a Nubian lore sheets. Your influence may take to the internet via the kindred social media influencer lore sheet from Let the Streets Run Red, forming an online cult of tech bros or crazed fans. And of course, the Church of Set from the Anarch book is there for you as well, in addition to Hashar Rudazi, if you really want to embrace the Setite doctrine, along with the other Theopadians. There are many ways one can build a character. Some of them are wrong, but most of them are right. Ultimately, it should be the narrative that drives the stats, powers and mechanics that work with and against them. But these are just my takes, and mine alone. How would you build a character belonging to this vampire clan? What wouldn't you do? What would you add to shake things up and make that concept just a little bit spicy? Let me know in the comments below. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Instagram and Blue Sky pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.